The transport shuddered as it pierced the poisonous skies of Vargan 9, the world the Galactic Council referred to politely as a corrective relocation zone. Another term for it by humans was a grave masquerading as a planet. Dr. Lena Hale gripped the metal railing as turbulence threw the ship sideways. Around her, nearly 1,000 human colonists, scientists, farmers, engineers, families, held on to whatever would keep them upright. No weapons. No armor. Barely any supplies. Impact in 40 seconds, the ship's automated system announced. Lena breathed in deeply. The air already smelled corrosive, even inside the pod. 3 weeks previously, the human colony ship Odyssey 4 had been intercepted. Their crime. Expanding into restricted territory, a rule that suspiciously only applied whenever humans made progress. Representative Turix, a crystalline official, had delivered the sentence with cold efficiency. Humans are too volatile. Too unpredictable. They must be contained. Contained meant dumped on Vargan 9, a world so hostile that 17 species exiled before them had been wiped out in months. 10 seconds, the voice echoed. The result was brutal. The hull screeched as pods slammed into the black soil, bounced, then finally skidded to a stop. When Lena stepped outside, she saw the truth about Vargan 9. Purple storm clouds were churning like boiling oceans. Acid rain hissed against metal. The gravity had pressed down like invisible chains. The air tasted metallic and heavy. But the worst were the creatures. 6-legged beasts with plated hides and eyes which caught lightning like mirrors. A dozen of them circled the humans silently. "Stay close," Lena shouted. A child began crying, and instantly one of the creatures snapped its head toward the noise. Lena saw its muscles tense, ready to leap. Before she could react, a mechanic named Jonas Reed grabbed a broken hull panel and threw it like a shield. The creature veered aside, surprised. The pack hesitated. They were not behaving like mindless predators. They were studying. Testing. Lena stepped forward alone, no weapon in hand. Her colleagues gasped. She went down onto one knee, palms visible. Predators understood confidence. They knew danger. And they understood when prey refused to run. Nothing moved for a long moment. The thunder cracked overhead. Acid rain sizzled across her sleeves. Finally, the largest of them uttered a deep, resonating noise. Not a threat. A recognition. The pack retreated into the forest. Jonas let out a hard breath. "What did you just do?" Lena stood, wiping acid droplets from her suit. "I introduced us," she said. "And told them we aren't prey." Everything was recorded by the monitoring station of the Council from orbit. The AI flagged the encounter as unexpected. Previous species had died in hours or fled screaming into the toxic forest. Humans had done neither. Lena gathered the colonists near the broken pods. "The Council sent us to die," she said loudly. "They think this planet will crush us like it crushed everyone before." She pointed to the storm. To the predators. To the burning sky. "But this world doesn't know who we are." She let the weight of her words settle. Humanity survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues, predators, meteors, and our own mistakes. Our home world was classified a Category 7 hostile biosphere by the Council long before they ever admitted it. Lightning flashed behind her. "We can do this," Lena said. "Because survival isn't new to us. It's our oldest talent." Around her fear turned into something fiercer, determination. The AI in orbit flagged that, too. This human group was not acting like a species that was headed for extinction. It was behaving like a species preparing to fight the planet itself. They named the place First Shelter. It wasn't much to begin with, just a ring of crashed pods and scraps of metal welded into a jagged circle, but within those walls, something vital did exist. A decision. They would live. Vargan 9 tried to change their minds on the first night. The storms came in layers. First, the wind came, thick and heavy, carrying dust that adhered to skin and burned like fine glass. Then came the rain, not constant, but in stabbing bursts, acid droplets falling hard enough to chip metal. Across the sky, lightning laced in branching webs that never completely faded. In the circle of pods, there were people working unceasingly. "Get that plating higher," Jonas yelled, bracing a sheet of hull metal against a support beam. "If the rain eats through it, we're done." 3 people pushed, 3 others welded. Sparks flew. The air was filled with the sharp smell of hot metal and ozone. She wove between groups, checking seals, triaging injuries, and monitoring for panic. The gravity weighed down everything. People moved about as if they hadn't slept in days. "Doctor, his arm," someone shouted. A young woman knelt beside a boy whose forearm was blistered and red where a droplet of rain had hit bare skin. "Hold still," Lena said softly, hunkering down beside him. The burns weren't deep, but they were vicious. She injected a local anesthetic and wrapped the wound in layered bandages coated with neutralizing gel. "It hurts," the boy whispered. "I know," Lena replied. "But you're still here. That's more than this planet expected." He managed a shaky smile. The 6-legged predators watched from outside the rough wall. Their eyes shone faintly in the dark, mirroring the lightning overhead. Dozens of them sat in an arc, just beyond the reach of human firelight. "Think they're planning round 2?" Jonas muttered, stepping up beside Lena as she inspected the perimeter. "They're learning," Lena said. "So are we. They didn't attack that night. Or the next." During the 4th day, one came alone. The creature ambled to the very edge of the settlement, head low, posture neither aggressive nor submissive. The humans on the wall hefted their makeshift weapons, metal spears, repurposed cutting tools, a few jury-rigged launchers made from pipe and compressed gas. "Don't fire," Lena ordered. The creature halted just beyond the wall and sat down to watch. Up close, it was terrifying and beautiful at once. Muscles moved under plated skin like coiled cables. Its breath steamed in the cold air. A faint pattern of bioluminescent lines glowed between its plates. "What do you see?" Jonas asked quietly. "A question," Lena said. She stepped forward again, as she had on that first day. Except that this time she was carrying something in her hands. Food. It wasn't much. A slab of cooked meat sliced from one of the smaller scavenger beasts the hunters had brought in, marinated in a paste made from bitter local plants that didn't burn their mouths. Lena placed the offering on a flat rock halfway between the wall and the predator. Then she stepped back. Its head turned, nostrils flared. Lightning flashed overhead, catching the whole scene for a moment in stark white. Then the creature moved. Slowly. It padded forward, each step careful. When it reached the rock it lowered its head and sniffed, then flicked out a dark tongue and tasted the meat. It ate. When it was done, it stared at Lena for a long moment. Then it turned and walked away. "You just fed the thing that wanted to eat us," Jonas muttered. "Exactly," Lena said. "Now it knows we're more useful alive than dead." In 2 weeks, First Shelter became a town. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't safe. But it was stable. They built stone trenches to redirect acid runoff. Gutter systems that fed the runoff into neutralizing pits. Canopies of layered hull metal over open walkways so people could move between shelters without getting burned. Not far away, where the land rose in a series of ridges, they found something more valuable than water. Heat. The ridges weren't simple hills, they were the broken skin of a volcanic field. Vents hissed warm vapor that smelled of rotten eggs but carried energy. "This is it," Jonas said, squatting near one of the ducts, his eyes luminous. "We can build on this." "Geothermal?" Lena asked. "Primitive, dirty, and perfect," Jonas grinned. "We can turn this heat into power. Batteries. Lights. Tools. Perhaps even proper shields against the storms." Vargan 9 wasn't just trying to kill them. But it was also full of resources. That realization changed everything. Hunting parties began to catalog plant life. Some leaves dissolved at the slightest touch. Others repelled acid rain naturally. A few even secreted neutralizing compounds. In a sealed pod, Lena and the scientists built a rough lab. They ground up leaves, boiled roots, tested toxicities, measured nutritional values. Then came the miracle on the 19th day. A vine that grew near the heat vents had an internal gel which, when processed correctly, neutralized the worst of the atmospheric acid. It tasted like burning rubber, however, when sprayed on walls, equipment, and even clothing, it did slow corrosion dramatically. We use this, Lena said, holding up a vial of the gel. We coat our structures. We treat our tools. We mix it with sealant for the outer walls. The planet wants to eat us. Fine. We eat it back. They began calling the vine, shield root. The predators, striders, as the kids had begun calling them, just wouldn't stay away. Sometimes alone, sometimes in small groups. They watched the camp from its edges. Soon enough, one lay every night near the entrance, like a sentry. Amy, a teenage girl whose family had died in the first storm, started leaving bits of food for that one. Over time, the strider allowed her to get closer. On the 27th day, someone shouted. Amy! Move! A wild beast something like a hairless bear with triple-jointed legs burst from the tree leaned straight toward Amy as she arranged supplies near the gate. The strider moved before any human reached her. It hit the beast from the side with enough force to shatter bone. The two rolled in a violent blur of claws and teeth. The strider came away with a bleeding leg. The wild beast didn't come away at all. Amy dropped to her knees beside the strider. Easy, easy, she whispered. The predator panted hard, blood hissing where it touched the acidic soil. Its eyes flicked to Amy, then to the humans rushing forward with raised weapons. Stand down! Lena shouted. It just saved her. That was the day everything shifted. Predator and prey became partners. In orbit, far above the storms, the monitoring AI of the Council processed a new set of impossible data. It contains human death rate, 96% lower than predicted food stores, supplemented successfully by native plant cultivation electrical output, increasing owing to geothermal adaptation local apex predators, no longer attacking humans. In several cases, they appeared to be guarding them. Representative Turek replayed the footage 3 times. This cannot continue, they murmured. Shall we begin orbital sterilization? The AI asked. There was a great big pause. No, said Turek slowly. Not yet. We still have much to learn from them. And if there was one constant in the galaxy, it was this: when powerful people decided to learn from humans, they always underestimated what humans were learning in return. Rachel Oren stood on the ridge, overlooking Homestead, just as dawn broke across Tartarus. 9. The world greeted her the way it always did, rolling purple clouds glowing from lightning deep within as if the atmosphere itself were breathing electricity. For the first time since their exile, she felt a flicker of something she had not allowed herself in years. Hope. Below her, the settlement moved with purpose. Humans cooked meals over fusion-heated stones, children ran across reinforced gravel, and striders prowled calmly between the structures they knew now as safe territory. 5 years ago this place had been a clearing of wreckage and fear. Now it was a living organism, a city built out of stubbornness and shared purpose. But everything was different this morning. Coming up to meet her over the ridge, David Cole wore a half-finished exosuit frame. The outer hydroponic dome is stable, he reported. The local plant hybrids are growing even faster than expected. We may hit full self-sustaining food levels in 3 months. Rachel smiled. It's happening then. We're finally stepping beyond survival. David exhaled. Feels strange, doesn't it? To have a future again. It did. But then that fragile future shattered a heartbeat later. A shockwave rippled across the valley, not natural storm energy, not seismic activity, not anything Tartarus 9 had shown before. No, this was different, a pulse that hummed through their bones, a vibration that made striders yelp and lift their armored heads. Rachel's face hardened. That wasn't a planet, she said. No, David said grimly. That came from orbit. They ran back to Homestead as fast as their feet could carry them. By the time they reached the command tower, alarms were already blaring. Scouts, engineers, farmers, everyone who could hold a tool or a weapon, gathered around the central console. A hologram flickered into existence. A ship, bearing council markings, burned, cracked, barely holding shape as it descended toward the settlement. It wasn't here to attack. It was crashing. Emergency landing vector locked, one sensor officer yelled. Impact in 14 seconds. Rachel watched the arc of the ship's descent. It would fall short of Homestead, thankfully, but not by much. Medic teams, she called. Strider handlers. Follow me. The ship slammed into the black sand dunes, slid 100 meters, and came to a smoking halt. Fires flickered across the hull. The atmosphere hissed around ruptured plates. Rachel came forward cautiously with 2 striders and half a dozen armed humans. The wreckage groaned. Something inside was alive. The hatch blew open. A Tauran officer staggered out, her legs buckling, trembling beneath her. The crystals embedded in her exosuit pulsed weakly. Rachel recognized the species instantly. And then the officer collapsed at her feet. Get her on a stretcher. Rachel ordered. Inside the wreck, they found 7 more survivors. 3 dead. 4 barely clinging to life. It took hours to stabilize them in Homestead's improvised hospital, but by evening, the lead officer regained consciousness. Her name was Lieutenant Saris, and her first word sent a cold shadow across the room. The galaxy is burning. Rachel leaned in closer. Start from the beginning. Saris swallowed, her voice thin and brittle. There is a new threat. Something. Impossible. Something that devours everything alive and leaves crystalline husks behind. David exchanged a horrified look with Rachel. Void wraiths, he guessed, recalling old myths, whispered in frontier bars. Saris nodded weakly. They consume worlds in hours. Caldera Prime is gone. 18 billion people. Gone. The room fell silent. Rachel's pulse hammered. Humanity had faced death worlds, predators, storms, starvation, political betrayal, but nothing like this. Nothing that devoured entire civilizations. Saris continued. The Council has lost dozens of fleets. The wraiths phase through matter. Weapons pass through them. Nothing stops them. Nothing except, what? Rachel pressed. Saris looked at her with something like awe. Your people. The Council sent scouts to Tartarus, 9 after reports of your survival. They saw what you accomplished. They realized they misjudged you. Rachel laughed without humor. Misjudged is one word. The Council wants your help, Saris said. They believe that humans might be the only species capable of fighting against an enemy like this. David muttered, we survived storms, predators, acid rain, crushing gravity, 5 years of hell, and suddenly we're the galaxy's last hope. Rachel said quietly, we're Deathworlders. And Deathworlders don't die easy. Saris pulled a cracked data crystal from her suit and handed it to Rachel. This contains classified intel. The Council requests that humans send warriors. Specialists. Anyone capable. Rachel stared at the crystal. And then came the final blow. If you decline, Saris said quietly, the Void Wraiths will reach this sector in less than a year. The room went cold. Rachel shut her eyes. Forged in fire, Tartarus, 9 had become a home paradise. But when the galaxy fell, it would come here too. She opened her eyes. Call the Council, she said. Homestead needs to make a decision. David whispered, you already made yours, didn't you? Rachel nodded. We survived the world they meant to kill us. Now we'll help save the worlds they were too afraid to protect. Outside, lightning arced across the purple sky. The storm was changing. And humanity was ready. The council chamber aboard the provisional command ship Aurora's hand was smaller than Rachel had expected. Somehow, she'd imagined grand halls, towering representatives, and the weight of countless civilizations pressing down upon her. Instead, she found a narrow, dimly lit briefing room filled with tired, frightened leaders who were running out of time. Above the round table, a holographic projection of the galaxy sprang into flickering life. Red zones pulsed like infected wounds across whole star sectors, systems consumed by the void wraiths. Rachel counted at least 9 major civilizations erased in the last 80 days. Lieutenant Saris stood beside her, still weakened from the crash. Opposite them sat 3 representatives of the council, Torin, Harvan, and the towering reptilian Crustori. Their eyes, crystalline, compound, or slit-pupilled, all bore the same expression. Desperation. The crystalline representative, Counselor Mayer, opened the meeting. Dr. Oren, Homestead has accomplished what no other exiled group has. Tartarus, 9 should have killed you. Instead, it forged you. Rachel didn't bat an eye at being reminded of their exile. You're building up to a request, she said. So ask it. The Crustori counselor leaned forward, claws tapping the table. We want your people to lead the first unified counterstrike. Humans will serve as shock units, specialists. No species has endured what you have. If anyone can survive contact with the wraiths, it is your warriors. You need us to die for you, David said straightforwardly. No, Mayer corrected slowly. We need you to lead. The other species will fight too. But they need an example, something fearless. Rachel's gaze fell upon the galactic map. The wraith spread was accelerating. Unless anything changed, every major core world would fall within 6 months. Homestead within a year. Earth soon after. She clenched her fists. She wasn't fighting for the council. She was fighting for humanity's future. What are you offering in return? Rachel asked. Mayer pulsed a deep blue, the council body language for sincerity. Permanent sovereignty for Tartarus, 9. Independent control of the system. Full citizenship rights. Trade access. Protection under galactic law. David lifted an eyebrow. All the things we asked for. And one more thing, Mayer added. If your forces succeed, humanity will have a permanent seat on the Council of Worlds. The room froze. For the first time in history, humanity would be recognized as a galactic power, not a problem, not a mistake, not an exile population but a sovereign people with voice and influence. Rachel slowly exhaled. You want soldiers. We'll give you Deathworlders trained by Tartarus, 9 itself. Your people could save us all, Saris whispered. No, Rachel said quietly. My people will save themselves. Saving the galaxy is the side effect. David smiled despite everything. That sounds like us. Rachel turned to the council. We accept your terms, but we fight under one flag, Homestead's. The Crustori counselor blinked. Not Earth's. Tartarus, 9 forged us. We fight as who we are now, not who we used to be. Mayer bowed his crystalline head. Then let history record the moment the galaxy called upon the Deathworlders. ## the training begins. In a matter of days, the council started ferrying soldiers from 20 species to Tartarus, 9, the only place where training for a wraith war made any sense. Rachel had expected resistance, arrogance, protests. Instead, she found soldiers who were terrified, and grateful. Lieutenant Saris remained on Homestead as liaison. The Valoran was the first to train alongside humans. Watching her try to run in Tartarus 9's gravity made Rachel feel sympathy, but not enough to go easy. Again, Rachel called out as Saris stumbled for the 6th time. This gravity is barbaric, Saris gasped. Good, Rachel said. If you can move here, you'll move twice as fast anywhere else. The Striders joined the drills, teaching soldiers how to sense phased enemies. Engineers taught recruits to build improvised electrical disruptor weapons using local materials. Scouts showed them how to survive storms that ripped apart council barracks. One soldier from Varn nearly fainted after his first lightning harvest. How, he wheezed, staring at the 3-meter capacitor humming with captured energy, do you people survive this world? David chuckled. We stopped trying to survive it years ago. Now we use it. By the end of week 2, half the recruits had dropped out. By the end of week 3, the remaining half were unrecognizable, leaner, faster, sharper, forged by the same hell that had shaped Homestead's people. NAR, the Valoran liaison from earlier years, resumed the role of council observer. The sight of a strider nuzzling a human child elicited a quiet comment from NAR. I once thought this place a cruel punishment. Now it seems like the birthplace of a new kind of soldier. Rachel nodded. Deathworlders are born, yes, but more importantly, they're made. It's never too late to make things right, even if it's just a gesture. ## the first strike. With the training phase complete, Rachel gathered the first strike force, 200 humans, 500 cross-species soldiers, 60 striders, and one mission. Destroy a Wraith cluster before it formed a new rift. The Council had never managed to do this. Humans were going to try anyway. Their transport, the Bright Fall, hovered over the launch bay. Soldiers strapped into harnesses. Striders growled with restless anticipation. Amy, now one of Homestead's most respected warriors, tightened her armor and adjusted her strider's harness. Whatever happens, she said, we fight as one. Rachel laid a hand on her shoulder. And we bring them home. The council generals watched from a separate chamber, anxious, uncertain, expecting failure. Rachel stepped onto the command deck. Tartarus, 9 forged us, she said into the ship-wide comm, the galaxy expects us to survive the impossible again. So that is exactly what we will do. David activated the jump engines. Coordinates locked. Rachel gave the order. Take us to war. In a flash of blue light, the ship disappeared into faster-than-light. The Bright Fall dropped out of FTL into a region of space so distorted it looked like shattered glass. Gravity ripples bent starlight into spirals. Color bled into impossible hues. The Wraith cluster was here, hiding within a fractured pocket of unstable reality. As soon as the ship stabilized, Rachel felt pressure in her skull. Dimensional interference, Saris muttered beside her. Prolonged exposure causes neurological breakdown. Rachel smirked. Good thing we don't do prolonged anything. The Wraith cluster pulsed in the tactical display like a swarm of living shadows. Its center hosted a half-formed anchor crystal, the early stage of a new rift. When matured, a gateway wide enough to cross millions of Wraiths would open. David zoomed the display. We have maybe 6 hours before it stabilizes. Less if they accelerate the process. Rachel turned to the soldiers gathering on the staging deck, humans, Crustori hunters, Valoran tacticians, Harvan plasma specialists, and dozens of striders, fully armored and restless. Team leaders, Rachel said, we approach on 3 fronts. Vanguard squads push the Wraith perimeter. Strider packs sweep their flanks. Engineering teams plant charges at the anchor. Amy stepped forward, helmet under her arm, her strider pacing in tight circles. Wraith clusters always shift their formations. We adapt on the fly. Same as Tartarus storms. A Crustori warrior hissed with approval. Deathworld tactics. No, Rachel corrected. Human tactics. The drop doors opened. Space outside shimmered with distortion. The struggle for the shattered veil had begun. ## the first clash. The instant the strike force deployed, the Wraiths fell like a collapsing night sky. They squeezed out of spatial cracks, screaming on frequencies that made the air vibrate. Several of the alien soldiers recoiled, but the humans didn't. Humans leaned forward. Charged forward. They ran into the storm. Amy's squad struck first, striders bounding through low-gravity space like 6-legged shadows. The Wraiths pounced, phasing through debris and ship fragments, but striders snapped onto them with jaws honed on Tartarus predators. The creatures had evolved to sense the flicker between dimensions. And where the striders bit, humans struck. Electrical disruptors flashed like lightning storms. Wraith forms destabilized, solidified, shattered. Behind them, Harvan plasma specialists fired superheated arcs that punched holes through partially phased wraith bodies. Valoran tacticians set up deflection shields that redirected the creatures into Strider ambush zones. For an instant, perhaps only an instant, the generals in the council, monitoring by telescreen from afar, forgot to breathe. These tactics, the Crustori commander whispered. They're improvising. No, NR corrected, watching Rachel's strike group maneuver through chaos with terrifying synchronicity. They're evolving. Into the core. David's engineering team broke through the last defensive wave and made it to the anchor chamber, a swirling vortex of fractured dimensions. Figures half-formed, half-alive twitched inside the energy field, remnants of civilizations consumed long ago. David swallowed hard. Coordinates locked. Charge placement begins. Amy and 3 humans made a circle of defense while Striders circled outward. They didn't say a word. They didn't need to. The anchor pulsed brighter. The wraiths felt the threat. They came. Like a tidal wave. Amy opened fire first. Contact. Multiple hostiles incoming. Her Strider roared, slamming into 2 half-phased wraiths. They flickered solid, just long enough for Amy's team to open fire. David continued to work. Sweat dripped inside his helmet. 2 more charges, keep them off me. Human reinforcements pushed in. Crustori hunters slammed into the wraith flank, wielding bladed weapons imbued with Tartarus lightning. Harvan marksmen loosed precision plasma bursts. But the wraiths adapted. They started phasing unpredictably, ignoring most council weapons entirely. Their patterns are changing. They're learning your electrical frequency. NAR's voice shouted over the comm. Rachel's voice cut in, calmly cold as stone. Then we change it. Adjust to what? David shouted. Chaos, Rachel said. Randomize output. No pattern. No rhythm. David hesitated. That could destabilize the charges. It could also kill the wraiths, Rachel replied. Do it. For an instant, David saw the old Rachel, the scientist for whom survival always outweighed fear. He changed the output matrix to full randomization. The disruptors screamed. The wraiths recoiled. Their bodies contorted in confusion, unable to adapt to a frequency devoid of structure, devoid of logic. We've got them. Amy yelled. Finish the charges. Rachel ordered. David set the last detonator. Done. We need extraction. Fall back to the Bright Fall, Rachel ordered. Vanguard teams, cover the retreat. Hashtag the hour of retreat. What followed was 20 minutes of pure survival. Humans struggled backward down disintegrating dimensional corridors, pulling injured comrades and hurt Striders with them. Council soldiers pursued in an astounded attitude, not at the foe, but at the humans for refusing to leave anybody behind. Even the Crustori warriors were stunned. These humans, they carry their dead, one whispered. No, NR said. They won't let them die. The retreat became a gauntlet, every meter bought with blood, every second with lives. Still, the strike force inched its agonizing way back towards the Bright Fall. David's exosuit sparked. Amy's armor cracked. Dozens fell. But they didn't break. They didn't falter. They refused to back down. Rachel's voice kept them moving. 3 more decks. 2 more. Hold the line. They reached the docking bay just as the wraiths surged for one final assault. Rachel. David yelled. The wraiths are trying to overload the anchor. She didn't hesitate. Amy. Go. Amy sprinted ahead of the rest, her Strider beside her, and she fired the remote detonator on a single-word command. The charges ignited. Light ripped through the room. Space folded inwards, like collapsing mirrors. The anchor crystal imploded. The wraith cluster screamed. A sound felt more in the soul than the ears. And then. Silence. The shattered veil collapsed. The wraith presence dissolved. The strike force managed to get away. The Brightfall jumped to FTL with seconds to spare. Aftermath. The generals of the council sat around the battle logs, dumbfounded and speechless, after the battle. What one human-led force had achieved. Asterisk 92% Wraith casualty rate. Complete destruction of an incipient rift. Asterisk 0 civilian losses. Asterisk cross-species casualty rates far lower than expected. Asterisk unprecedented coordination among the militaries of the council. For the first time in galactic history, the phrase Deathworlder doctrine entered council vocabulary. Rachel's forces had proved something that the galaxy had forgotten: humans were not survivors by chance. Humans were survivors by choice. And a human who chooses to fight is an extinction event for whatever gets in their way. Homestead skyline shone under the violet sun of Tartarus 9, its light reflecting off stone towers built by hands that once trembled with fear. Now, those hands forged steel, molded armor, built generators from lightning, and welded metal under volcanic heat. What was once a settlement had expanded into a true city, alive, defiant, and unmistakably human. Rachel Oren walked the outer ramparts, as she often did, at first light. The Striders prowled beside her, their six-legged forms moving with silent precision, their crystalline eyes alert for threats. These creatures had once circled the first crash site as predators. Now they walked as guardians, partners. Today was different. For the first time in history, off-world soldiers would train on a death world, under human command. A sleek shuttle came into view overhead, its hull emblazoned with the symbols of 20 species. It began a cautious descent. Every pilot in the galaxy knew landing on Tartarus 9 was like landing inside a living storm. David Cole joined Rachel at the gate. "You ready?" he asked. Rachel smiled. "I'm more ready than they are." The shuttle touched down. The airlock hissed open, releasing a cluster of nervous recruits, some insectoid, others reptilian, crystalline, or fur-covered. Their eyes darted between storm-blackened sky, scarred terrain, and the Striders watching them like instructors evaluating students. Officer Nara stepped forward, now permanently assigned as liaison to Homestead. "Recruits," Nara called out, "welcome to Tartarus 9. The humans call it a dangerous paradise. You will learn why." Several trainees gulped. Rachel stepped forward. "Form a line. Orientation begins now." The soldiers fell in, crookedly. Rachel sighed. "First lesson, on a death world, a crooked line is a dead line. Fix it." They scrambled into a straight formation. "Better," she said. "Let's begin." Day 1 of training, terror meets discipline. The first exercise was simple: walk beyond the perimeter 500 meters and return. For any normal world, trivial. Impossible for Tartarus 9. Gravity crushed their bodies. Acidic mist burned their eyes. Electrical storms formed without warning. And the Striders followed them, not attacking, but watching, waiting to see who'd panic. A crystalline trainee stepped forward. "We were told this was a survival course. This is suicide." Rachel shook her head. "Survival isn't about avoiding danger. It's about moving through danger with purpose." A tremor rumbled under their feet. The ground cracked open, and a geyser of scalding steam erupted. Screams filled the air. The Striders struck first, nudging the trainees away with their keen points and low growls. Rachel shouted, "Rule number 1, you never outrun Tartarus 9. You work with it." The trainees were staring at her in utter disbelief as the steam subsided. "That was normal?" one asked. "That was the planet saying hello," Rachel replied. They learned quickly. Fear turned to respect. Respect turned into discipline. And slowly, discipline turned into understanding. The galaxy had sent soldiers. Tartarus 9 was sending back survivors. A new alliance takes shape. After 3 weeks, Rachel called a meeting in the central hall. A representative of each of the 20 species attended. Even the Striders gathered in the shadows, listening. David projected a hologram of the galaxy, areas scarred by Wraith attacks, territories abandoned, and unexplored borders glowing red with warnings. The Wraith threat isn't gone, David said. We destroyed the anchor, but smaller rifts still appear across the frontier. A reptilian representative folded his arms. Your council said the Wraiths are contained. Rachel shook her head. Contained doesn't mean defeated. And the council is still rebuilding. They can't lead an intergalactic defense. Then who will? Nara asked quietly. Rachel let silence speak for a moment. Then she answered. We will. The room froze. A feathered avian envoy leant forward. Humans. You are a single exile colony. No, Rachel said, her voice calm and absolute. We're a species forged on 2 death worlds. Tartarus, 9 made us stronger. The Wraiths made us smarter. And surviving both made us capable of what others consider impossible. She gestured to the trainees. You came here weak. You are leaving strong. Imagine an alliance built on that strength. Members exchanged looks, fear, hope, confusion. Nara finally stood. What Rachel proposes is not a human empire. It is a coalition, an alliance for the impossible. A force trained to fight threats the council cannot handle. David added, and it won't be just soldiers. Engineers, scientists, medics. Each species contributes what they excel at. Humans contribute survival and adaptation. A long silence filled the hall. Then the first representative stood. I vote yes. Then another. Yes. One by one, each species agreed. The Death World Alliance was born. The relative abundance of a species is the number of organisms in the species expressed as a percentage of total community abundance. Storm Trial. That night, Tartarus 9 cut loose with one of its fabled hyperstorms, the kind that could rip unshielded ships to shreds and flatten forests. Rachel used it for their final test. Suit up, she ordered. The Alliance trainees marched into the valley, striders pacing beside them like ancient beasts, lightning splitting the sky. Winds roared. Acid rain fell in sheets. Debris flew like missiles. Most species would have died. These recruits endured. Because humans had taught them how. By dawn, when the storm had abated, the valley was full of shredded trees, smoking boulders, and debris, but every one of the trainees was alive. Rachel was at the front of the queue. Congratulations, she said. You succeeded at something the galaxy thought impossible. David joined her, smiling. Welcome to the Death World Alliance. The recruits burst into cheers. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species had survived Tartarus 9, as students, not victims. The signal. That night, while the new alliance was still celebrating, a long-range alert flashed in the Homestead Command Center. Rachel and David raced inside. Nara stared at the screen, trembling. It's from deep space, Nara whispered. A region unexplored by any species. The signal repeated, fragmented but unmistakably intelligent. David improved it. Rachel felt her blood run cold. That symbol, she whispered. It matched the carvings found in Chapter 5. Ancient. The ones who came before. The ones who disappeared. The creators. The architects. Their message was simple. We are returning. Rachel exchanged glances with David and Nara. Looks like impossible has a new definition, she said softly. And somewhere, in the dark between galaxies. Something answered. The ancient signal repeated across every screen, and silence fell in the command center. A pulsing symbol, neither language nor code, hovered in mid-air, like a heartbeat against the void. Rachel Oren stood frozen. The architects, she whispered. After millions of years, they're coming back. David let his breath out slowly. If they're alive. If this isn't some automated echo. If they aren't hostile. Nara moved closer, her voice shaking. Or if they aren't coming to finish what the Wraiths started. A storm crackled outside, purple lightning flashing across the horizon as if the planet itself sensed what was to come. The symbol pulsed once more. Then the message changed. Prepare. The architects arrive. 3 days later, every member of the newly formed Deathworld Alliance gathered outside Homestead. Thousands of soldiers from dozens of species stood shoulder to shoulder. Striders prowled between them, restless. The sky tore open. A fracture of white light expanded overhead, warping gravity and buckling color. The energy was ancient, not destructive, but smothering, like the shadow of a living star. A vessel appeared. If vessel was even the right word. It wasn't made of metal. It was made of dimensional threads, something woven like glass and shadow, shifting between solid and transparent. The ship hovered silently, dwarfing mountains. Rachel whispered, "That thing isn't built in physical space." David nodded. "They're not returning from somewhere. They're returning from elsewhere." The ship opened. A beam of soft blue light descended. And then a figure emerged. Humanoid. Tall. Graceful. Skin like liquid silver. Eyes like galaxies compressed into spheres. An architect. Every Alliance soldier instinctively raised their weapon, but Rachel raised her hand. "No one shoots." The architect approached until it stood a few meters away. Its voice echoed directly inside minds, soft and huge. "Children of the Second Forge, we greet you." Rachel stepped forward. "You created us," she said. "Or at least, started us." The architect inclined its head. "Your kind was designed to adapt. To evolve without limit. To become guardians of the boundary between order and the void." David frowned. "Then why leave? Why let the wraiths almost destroy the galaxy?" The architect's expression fell. "We fell. The Voidborn, your wraiths, breached our dimension. They consumed worlds beyond your understanding. We sealed ourselves away to contain them." Nara's eyes had widened. "Then why return now?" "Because you survived." The words shook everyone. "We believed no successor species could endure the trials you faced. Tartarus, 9. The Wraith invasion. The collapse of the anchor. But you did." The architect raised a hand. The earth shook. Volcanic rock rose from the valley floor, merging into crystalline towers. Energy pulsed through them like veins. "You have created an alliance," the architect continued. "United not by fear, but by conviction." Rachel swallowed. "If you're here to reclaim control." "No." The architect's voice softened. "We did not return to rule. We returned to pass the torch." The alliance murmured in confusion. Rachel stepped closer. "Explain." The architect looked towards the purple sky. "We cannot stay long in your dimension. The Voidborn still sense us. To them, our presence is a beacon." David frowned. "Then why risk coming back?" The architect extended a hand. A sphere materialized, an artificial star glowing with shifting equations. "This contains the complete blueprint of the boundary engine. The machine that once sealed the void and kept your galaxy safe." Rachel's heart pounded. "You're giving it to us. Humans have done what the Council never could. You conquered a death world. You united species who feared you. You fought the impossible, and won." The architect placed the sphere in Rachel's hands. It felt warm. Alive. "Now you must finish what we began. The final test." A deep rumble spread across the valley. Not thunder. Not storm. Something else. The architect whipped around. They followed. The sky tore open again, this time violently. A second rift exploded across the horizon, and out of it poured darkness like liquid smoke. Forms materialized, vast multi-eyed horrors that ignored physics, phasing in and out of existence. Void-born. Wraiths, but larger, more evolved, hungrier. Rachel activated her comms. "All Alliance units, defensive formation." The architect floated upward, hands glowing with dimensional energy. "This is your trial. If you prevail, the galaxy lives. If you fail, everything ends." The Voidborn descended. Striders roared. The Alliance charged. And Tartarus 9 itself seemed to wake up, storms increasing, lightning striking the ground like artillery fire. Rachel took point. Her exosuit crackled with stored energy. David fought beside her with a customized lightning spear that discharged enough power to shatter mountains. Nara and the elite trainees moved in perfect sync. Species that had once hated each other fought now back to back. Wraiths phased through stone. Striders intercepted them, dragging them down. Electrical weapons solidified their forms. Conventional rounds shattered crystalline bodies. But the Voidborn kept coming. One massive Void Titan burst from the rift, a creature the size of a city block. Rachel screamed into comms. All units, target the rift. Without it, they can't reinforce. The architect's voice filled their minds. Use the sphere. Turn on the boundary engine. Rachel clutched the sphere. It vibrated as if alive. She raised it high. A beam of blue light shot into the sky, connecting with the rift. The ground shook. The air rippled. Reality distorted. David, now. David activated his full capacitor grid. A bolt of lightning arced upwards, joining with the architect's energy. The rift started collapsing. The Void Titan lunged towards Rachel. A Strider, Amy's old companion, leapt between them, sacrificing itself as wraith talons tore into its body. In a rage, Rachel yelled and released the full power of the sphere. A shockwave ripped across the valley. The Voidborn shrieked as they disintegrated, light devouring shadow. The rift imploded. Silence fell. The battle was over. Tartarus 9 emerged victorious. The legacy. The architect sank downward, its form fluttering. The void is sealed once more. Our time is done. Rachel stepped forward. Will we ever see you again? If we have done our work well. No. The architect laid its hand on Rachel's shoulder. Guard this galaxy as we once did. Not with power. With unity. Asterisk. Its body dissolved into light, returning to whatever dimension the architects came from. The remaining energy flowed into the sphere, and then into Rachel. She gasped as visions filled her mind, star maps, technologies, warnings, and blueprints. Everything the architects left behind. David caught her as she staggered. You okay? Rachel smiled through her tears. I am now. Epilogue. Homestead grew to become the capital of a new interstellar power. The Deathworld Alliance. A coalition of species trained in survival, unity, and courage. A force not built on fear, but resilience. Rachel Oren became its first Commander Prime. David became Chief Architect of the new Boundary Engine. Nara became the first non-human ambassador to Earth. And Tartarus 9. Once a death sentence. Now, the beating heart of galactic hope. Because humanity had proved one last truth. You can exile humans. You can leave them. You can throw them at extinction itself. But humans don't die quietly. They rise. They adapt. They rebuild the universe, ***. The story ends there, but the legacy of Tartarus 9 had just begun.